Okay, so today what I'd like to focus on Parshas Lech Lecha is chapter 17 of Genesis, which discusses the mitzvah of a bris milah, of a circumcision. I thought it would be nice to discuss this in honor of the conversos which we came in contact with in Catania this past Shabbos. And we heard a lecture from a man named Leonardo who told us that there was a lot of evidence that the male descendants of each family, as they went down in each generation of conversos who were forcibly converted, that they managed to retain the practice of circumcision, even though this was very, very dangerous, that it was extremely dangerous, because if the church discovered, the Inquisition discovered that they were maintaining the practices of the Jewish faith, they would be severely punished. But nevertheless, they retained this practice of circumcision, even though in Sicily, people were not circumcising themselves, but the conversos were, or at least the males, obviously. So in honor of the dedication, the Mesiras Nefesh, that they took upon themselves to circumcise themselves, even at great physical danger, I thought we would study about the mitzvah of bris milah, which appears in our portion. What I'd like to do first is to read the verses with the passages from the Talmud that accompany those verses. And after that, we could share some of the teachings of Rabbi Soloveitchik. He has some powerful teachings on the mitzvah, on the verses in our portion. And perhaps we'll have time to share a classic Hasidic story as well. So the verse states, chapter 17, verse 1, Vayhi Avram ben Tishim Shana v'Teisha Shanim. And Abram was 99 years old. Vayera Hashem el Avram, and God appeared to Avram. Vayomer elav, and God said to him, Ani Kel Shaddai. I am Kel Shaddai, that's my name. Hitalech lefanai v'yeh tamim. Walk before me and be perfect. Walk before me and be perfect. So that's what the first verse of this. And we're going to read how God is going to command Abraham to get a circumcision. But first, we start with the Rashi before we even go to the Talmud. Even though the Talmud came before the Rashi, the Rashi tells us, what does this mean? Ani Kel Shaddai, or Kel Shakai. Ani hu, I am he. Sheyesh dai be'elokutai l'chol bria. That there is in my divinity enough for every creature. Sheyesh dai, that there is enough. So therefore, God is saying that there's enough in my divinity for every creature. But this Rashi seems to be inconsistent with a passage from the Talmud, because the way Shaddai is used here, it implies that Hashem has the ability to care for every creature, including Abraham. So what he's saying, this is the explanation of the Be'er B'Sadeh, based upon Bereshis Rabbah. Rabbi Soloveitchik develops this point, but he's saying that Avram was worried that when he got the bris, prior to him being circumcised, he'd be able to care for the rest of mankind. But now that he has a bris, he was no longer able to provide for them. So Hashem says, don't worry about it. Ani hu sheyesh dai be'elokutai l'chol bria. That's what he's saying. He's saying, don't worry about it. I can care for everybody. So, and we'll see how Rabbi Soloveitchik develops this, but basically what the Be'er B'Sadeh is saying is that Hashem is promising that he can care for everybody, and Abraham doesn't need to. Rabbi Soloveitchik takes it in a different direction. But first, before we get to Rabbi Soloveitchik, just want to say what the the Talmud and Chagiga goes in a different direction. Talmud and Chagiga says, what does it mean, sheyesh dai, that there is sufficient? God said, Ani hu shamarti lo'olam dai. I was the one who said to the world, it is enough. What does that mean? That this is based upon the Talmud and Chagiga, that when God was creating the world kept growing and growing and growing until God rebuked the world and he said to stop. So basically, that you have to curtail yourself. According to the first approach, the mitzvah of bris milah's primary purpose was to separate Abraham from the world. According to the second approach, the mitzvah of bris milah was to say, stop trying to conquer everything. It's a sufficient what you have here. They're really the same answer, but we're coming at it from two different directions. They're the same idea that up until now, Abraham was going, Avram Haya Holech. What does it say at the beginning of the portion? It says the very beginning of the portion, I'll just read the verse. Abraham was going back and forth. He's going back and forth across the south. But now, Abraham is being told, stop, it's sufficient. You don't need more. This is a powerful idea, and I want to share with you what Rabbi Soloveitchik says about it. I found this in Rabbi Ben Mintz's library in the Chumash Misores Harav, which is basically a compilation of Rabbi Soloveitchik's writings from different places. And what does Rabbi Soloveitchik say here? Rabbi Soloveitchik says here the following: the Midrash Rabbah records how prior to the circumcision, Avram was mingling with others, collecting many people who were adherents to the faith. But when Hashem commanded Avram to be circumcised, Avram was concerned that there was now going to be a barrier, insurmountable barrier between him and his neighbors. So Hashem responded, it is sufficient for you that I am your God. Tayecha, it is sufficient for you that I am your God. What does that mean? And this is how Rabbi Soloveitchik interprets it. Now, what we saw before, that the other people can have a relationship with God, but what Hashem is reinforcing to Avram is that, but if you have a relationship with God, then you don't need anyone else to obtain fulfillment. If you have a sufficient relationship with God, you don't need anyone else to obtain fulfillment. So what Hashem, this is what Rabbi Soloveitchik says, Hashem was telling Avram, you may lose others, but you will never lose me. The name Shaddai comes from, I am he whose divinity is enough for every creature. And this is what Rabbi Soloveitchik says. At first, Avram thought that his mandate was to convert the entire world, that his mission was a universal one, to be a father of a multitude of nations. And so therefore, Avram was traveling throughout the world to spread this idea of one God. And he thought he would complete this process in his lifetime. And now Hashem is saying to him, die. It is enough. That stop expanding your circle of followers. And by circumcising himself, Abraham was making it much harder for people to join. And also he was still separating himself from other people. And so therefore, Hashem's plan was instead to develop a nation small in number but powerful in faith. And that's what Hashem is saying. Ani kel Shaddai. I am the one who says it's enough. Stop trying to be bigger than you are. So that's the first idea. That's the first idea from this verse. Okay, I'll stop for a second. I see people have questions. Hold on.